Wow, congratulations on this new album. Hot Thoughts, I think, is your sexiest album to date, for sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I read a story that cracked me up about part of the inspiration for the title came from a guy in Japan who was coming on to your girlfriend. Could you share that story, please?
Yeah, that's right. So she had, and I was just working on the song right after she told me this story, but she had, I guess she was in Shibuya. She had jet lag, and so she was out walking around late at night, maybe 1 or 2 in the morning, and somehow there was tons of people out on the street still, as is the case in Tokyo, I guess. And yeah, some guy that just came up to her and just started telling her that her teeth looked so shining and bright and were lighting up the street, and that was his thing. They couldn't really speak each other's language very well, and I think that was the end of it. But
I'm so glad that line found its way into that song. It just made me feel great. There's also there's kind of a Prince feel. I heard it on so many of the things, and I was so glad to learn that you were a huge Prince fan.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you think that it's influenced the music that you're making right now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, where to spot influences for me, but I have been, I got my first Prince album when I was 11 years old. A friend of mine left his cassette for $19.99 over at my house, and it became mine, and to me the thing that I immediately gravitated towards was there's a song called Let's Pretend We're Married. You know that one?
Yeah.
It's sort of risque song for an 11-year-old. I had never heard anybody talk like that on a record before, so that's the one I would play over and over again. But he's probably, there's certain people, John Lennon, David Bowie, Prince, that probably have been made their way onto every record we've made.
Yeah.
And we lost 2 of them.
No kidding. You did this, or at least you recorded part of this album in a cabin, right? Where there's no electrical. And what's weird is this is such a heavily produced album. I love it. And you did it in a cabin with no electronics.
No, there was electricity.
Well, explain this to me. I'm very confused. How did it happen?
It's definitely low rent, but it's there's electricity there. When we work with Dave Fridman, this guy who's a great producer, he's produced all of the Flaming Lips records and a lot of, what else is he? He did a Sleater Kinney record.
He mixed
Tame Impala. Yeah, he does a lot of great stuff. MGMT. Anyway, when we work with him, you got to go up to his studio, which is out in the woods, about 20 minutes from Fredonia, New York. And you've probably never heard of Fredonia, New York, but if you have, it's a pretty small town in itself. So to go further 20 minutes out into the woods you're out in the thick of it. And there was electricity, but it's pretty bare bones, and we sleep out there, and so we're there all the time, and we get it's cool, but it makes me a little crazy.
I just asked because these guys are at Project PAPS, which is Music Fest Northwest down on the waterfront tomorrow. So because this album is it's with a lot of synth, with a lot of really cool production, how has it been to transfer this to the stage? Is it difficult?
It's always a thing. If you make a record, as we did this last one, where you're coming up with a lot of parts in the studio. We did a lot of prep work before we got to the studio, but a lot comes together in the studio. When that happens, and you haven't played the songs live before you record them, then it's weird. It's a backwards process where you've recorded the record, then you got to go how to figure out how to play it live.
Yeah.
And it did take a second, but there's this song Pink Up that we really wanted to play it, but we didn't start playing it till a few weeks ago. Because it's complex. It's a backward. You're figuring it out in backwards.
Which is every reason you have to download this album. You're going to love it. I think it's one of your best. Brett, more music from Spoon.
Thanks.